Hello, everybody. Hope everyone's okay. So, warm welcome to this week's coaching call. I'm Paul Adams. We've got Rob Fortney in the background. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Excellent. This is sort of a continuation of the Chinese suppliers, and with respect to how to deal with them. And in this coaching call, we're going to go through communicating with your Chinese supplier, the best way to do it, what to do, how to do it. We're going to be covering some of those aspects. I'm not going to go into absolute finite detail with respect to this is what you write, but this is more of a top level, the do's and don'ts.
Hey, so, I like the live audience today.
Yeah, oh no, sorry.
The live studio audience. Hey, so a couple of things that I want to talk about. Like, this probably is an overlooked thing that I think that people overlook a lot. And getting this process right here will save you so much time that you won't believe it. Communicating with a different culture means they have different ways to communicate, and how they communicate is different. You also have different language. Just in my experience, being out of the country for the last couple of years, when other people have other languages and you even pull out Google Translator, you would not believe, like, I have to reverse translate things from Thai. So I'll put what I want to say, I'll then put it in, it'll give me an answer in Thai, and then I have to reverse translate it because, I mean, it'll leave out super important words that make the sentence sound different, and actually, for us in English, become a different conversation. It changes the meaning drastically. So first thing, we've done this before, but I don't think we've talked about that. So that may be that's a Rob bonus tip, probably, that if you're going to use Google Translator ever, make sure that you retranslate it once you translate it. I know that sounds odd, but so you'll take it from English into Chinese, and then when you have it in Chinese, you put it. Google Translate has a reverse translate, and what it does is it'll turn it back into an English translation, and you'll see what words and things are left out. Like, they'll leave out, he's and she's and does, because a lot of Asian language, and I think Chinese as well, has more gender neutral things that they align. So making sure that you understand that. Communicating with Chinese suppliers will make your life and the delivery of your products better, faster. You'll move along the process faster to getting your business launched. When you're sourcing a product, if you're, and Paul, I know we'll talk about this, if you're sending emails nonstop, you're going to find that the process takes literally, instead of maybe taking a day to 2 days, you're going to take a week to get the same answer. And I know we'll talk about some of the funny things and some of the things that you'll find inside of this presentation that the way in which you communicate to Chinese, and the biggest one I know we'll talk about is that Chinese culture, for some reason, they don't answer but one question at a time. Like, they won't answer 4 questions at a time, and I know Paul has that in the presentation. But it's just one of those funny things that go on inside of this business. So communicating with the Chinese, I think it will super ignite your process and make it much quicker and much easier to go through, because you're going to get the answers you want. You're going to get the correct answers. You're going to learn how to make sure that things are kept track of, and that you can consistently communicate with a different culture and do it correctly. So, Paul, let's get started.
Like a plan. That's very good, and I have got all of those covered. So let's have a look, see what we have here. Let's jump straight in. So, the do's and don'ts of email versus chat. Now, we've been through, and it's not an uncommon thing to actually go and find our products on a platform called Alibaba. So we're assuming at this stage you've actually found a number of potential suppliers, and you're actually talking with them. Now, the last thing you want to do is start with an email. That's the last thing you want to do. Really, you want to be starting with what we call chat, the live chat inside Alibaba itself. Now you can see down there, you've got a little blue bubble with a head on it. It just says chat now. Let me just zoom in so you can see that, just to make sure. This I've circled it, so it's pretty obvious. Okay. Now, in order to chat now, you need to be signed into the Alibaba platform, which is not a problem because this is a free platform to sign up to. So there's no cost involved. You just need to set yourself up in an account. So once you have that account, it's very, very easy to start communicating with these potential suppliers. And as Rob said, I'm going to go through this a number of times. Ask the very, very basic questions when we're starting out. Don't go into details with respect to like follow-on orders and like all of that. It's nonsense. What we're looking for here is, this is a very, very first communication. Hi, this is what I would do. Hi, I'm Paul. I'm interested in, so look at this product here, your silicone baking mat. All right, and basically leave it there and wait for them to come back to you. And normally, if this is on blue chat, if they're away, it'll just say leave a message. But if they're online, and this is a very good starting gauge with respect to how responsive these people are going to be as a supplier. If they come straight back to you, that's a very, very good sign, because that means they're on the ball, they're monitoring everything, they're responsive. Okay, I've had it in the past where I think, you know what, this supplier has got the brilliant, most perfect product I'm looking for. I can expand on them. Their portfolio is fantastic. They can't communicate. They don't come back to me. So you got to just move on. Don't get attached to anybody or anything. Okay, to start with. So chat now. That's the place to start. And I'll say keep it very simple. Hi, I'm Paul. I'm interested in your baking mat. This one here. And they'll go, hi, Paul. How you doing? Good. Can you give me the price for 100 off, please? One question at a time. Wait for them to come back to you before you actually put anything else in. Okay, don't go, oh, and the follow-on order is going to be 500, then potentially 1,000. No, just ask for that very basic first question. Answer the one question. Wait for that answer before you ask the next one. So the sequence will go something like this. Hi, I'm Paul. I'm interested in your baking mat. Hello, Paul. This is Doris. Hello, Doris. Can you give me the price for 100 baking mats, please? Oh, sorry, Paul. Our MOQ is 200. 200's fine. Can you give me the price for 200, please? Oh, yeah. Our price is $2.75 each. Okay. What if I want printing? If you want extra printing, that's going to cost you an extra 50 cents. Okay. Thank you very much. I'll come back to you. And leave it there. There's no need to get all too friendly at this stage.
Hey, right? Paul.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I wanted to tell one of the, I think, because this is important. This just happened to us the other day. I mean, we were checking out a product. We had a conversation in the morning. I said, hey, let's find out today what's going on. And had you just sent an email and didn't have a contact, and one of them we had a contact quickly, but you were able to, because of the contact, you were able to have a chat quickly with somebody and have it go back and forth. And we had the answer. I mean, I think I had the answer in a couple hours. Yeah. From, you know, what the order was, what the shipping, what the printing was, everything on a brand new product. We knew exactly what we were doing. And I even came back to you a couple of times with questions and you came right back. So it just shows you that the process can happen. If you send an email, like I promise you, you're going to be waiting at least a day. Like, you know, if you're lucky, you catch them, you know, you just never know. So get out of the email. Get out of the email. If you learn anything from this whole presentation today, it's do not email. It will slow down your process so much.
Yeah, definitely. So I want to jump onto the next screen. Let's have a look at that. So this is a typical reply. Okay, so once you've started the live chat, it's easy to get your questions answered very quickly, like Rob was saying. Yeah, we will manage to go through the whole process very, very quickly. And we were able to make our decision within hours as opposed to days or weeks. So we got the standard, you're going to get all sorts of like, dear Paul, hi sir, hi my dear, stuff like this. This one is just like dears. All right, they're going to call you all sorts of things. Don't worry about that. I haven't actually had anyone call me honey yet, but I dare say that's early days. Quality is our culture. So we've got our basic statement here. Standard reply. Okay, culture, quality is our culture. We are the manufacturer. Right, so that's the important information for me to understand. Manufacturer versus trading company. So it's just more information I can make my decision on. And we can make it by your design. In other words, they offer what we call OEM, original equipment manufacturer. So if I've got a specific design I want to make, if I've got my logo there, if I want to change something, they can do that for me. Okay, which is great. Our quotation, just and this is very, very Chinglish, with a Chinglish Chinese English mix. And again, you're gonna have to get used to the way they write and communicate. Our quotation, just for your reference, finally price will depend on your design. Obviously, if I'm going to change things around, this is going to affect the pricing somewhat. If you like our goods, please do not hesitate to let us know. So that was pretty good English, in my opinion. Okay, but it's given me some good information. One, they're assuming that their quality is their culture, and that's what they focus on. Two, they're the manufacturer, and they're able to produce alternatives for me if I want to change the product design at all, which is great. And obviously their pricing will depend on my final decision on the design. All right, now this is where we get some really good English Chinglish coming in. We are one of the honest dealer confirmed by Alibaba company. So we trust that with us, your money will be in safe, your business will be in safe. Okay, very Chinglish there, not very good English at all. But this is a typical one. What they're trying to say is like, you can trust us, all right, because we've been audited and confirmed that we're a real supplier by Alibaba, and you can trust us. Therefore, send us your money. All right, so I just found that a little bit humorous, but you will get some of these like really strange terminology coming over, and the way they actually talk to you. They're trying to be very, very friendly. Okay, you've got to remember this is business. All right, it's important. I'm going to go into building a relationship with your supplier shortly, but at the end of the day, this is business. All right, so no need to worry about asking about their family to start with. All right, all of this. So that's it, and you will get this like, hello, my dear. It comes across quite a lot. Don't take offense, it's just the way they are. So when to switch over to the good old Skypey, which is what they tend to call it for whatever reason. So switch to Skype. And there are other platforms that we can have a look at, and I've got a couple here. I know Rob uses a couple of different ones that I do as well, but let's talk about Skype to start with. If you'd like to continue to move on discussing with a particular supplier, and you like what they're telling you with respect to what they can do, the next thing is to move over to Skype, because we all know most of us have got Skype, and it's very quick to actually have a conversation in Skype. Also, it's quite easy to look back at the chat history as opposed to going back and trying to find which supplier you were talking to, which one had the right information with respect to the platform inside the Alibaba chat system. Okay, that's a lot easier to track and monitor on Skype. Here's a quick extract from one of my Skype conversations I had some time back. We cannot proceed it before anything confirmed. Again, not very good English, but I understand it. So please test the new sample, and I will see everything out ASAP. Parts were ordered except for the button. Okay, so this is a particular project I'm working on in the background. So it's very easy to get information coming through from Skype. Now, I've got a few suppliers out there that they don't switch on Skype very often. So therefore, basically you work out which platform your supplier is on and then move to that one. So if they're not on Skype very much, ask them which is your preferred method of communication, and they will tell you, so to make sure that you have that as your main part of your communication with that particular supplier. Here's another alternative, WeChat. Most Western have Skype. Like I said, I've got a couple of Skype accounts. I've got them open most of the days, 24/7. However, in China, Skype is not the number one preferred. The number one preferred platform is WeChat. I don't know how many millions, hundreds of millions of people have got this in China. But you can download it as part of an app, and it's very easy. I've got one particular supplier that I deal with. I basically send an email, then follow up on WeChat, and I always continue that conversation with WeChat until everything's finalized. And this is when I'm placing orders with that particular supplier. That's their preferred method, so therefore I've adapted. Rob, you use a couple of other ones. I can't remember what you use. Line, is it something like this? There are basically others out there that you really need to be looking into, as opposed to just email, just chat, just Skype. Okay, find out what your supplier's preferred platform is.
I mean, I can tell you this. I've done a whole entire product process, and I never came out of Alibaba chat. I mean, reality. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I mean, if you're with a bigger a supplier, they're in an office every day, you know that you have contact with them. I've done the entire process. Not saying I didn't have an email, but I've done that process several times that way. If you have a direct connect to the chat isn't that bad. I don't like the way it keeps track of things. It's odd, but anyway, certainly getting started is a great way to start. Like, I don't even send a first email. I go right into, if I want a product, I go right into the chat right on Alibaba and start there. I'll move to something else, but they definitely use Skype for sure. The reason WeChat works is because you maybe to understand what it looks like there. So China has over 50 or right around 50 new cities that have over 2 million people, and they happened in the last 25 years. And that's because they moved all these farmers in and they industrialized, and that's why we get all these products there. Well, they built these huge buildings that are full of employees, and they've moved them, and so they're young college girls maybe, or entire offices or college guys, and they all sit in a dorm room and they live there, and then they go to work every day. Well, in those offices, they don't have any much thing to do there. They're all kind of in their own little area. So they have their phones with them at all time, and they have WeChat, and they're using WeChat in their normal life. So there's this great thing that happens. You can almost, if you have, a good salesperson, they will communicate with you at 2 in the morning. I mean, you send them, they have the phone by their bed, they look at it. They're just young, and they're so hooked up on social media that they will respond to you at times that you would never think. And that's an assuring thing. You text someone, it's 3 in the morning, in China, or you're 3 in the morning, and they'll answer. Obviously, if you're in the United States, you're on this, on an opposite schedule. So it becomes a little more difficult on timing for each other. So know that WeChat will give you almost direct access. It's on their phone. There's very little other things that you can do where you send messages like that are so active that you get a message, back and forth. Facebook won't work because Facebook doesn't work in China. Now, there is a Facebook app that they basically copied exactly, but it's all in Chinese, and you're not gonna have to spend a bunch of time dealing with that. So anyway, there's my 2 cents.
One important thing you brought up there, Rob, was timescales. Now, I've got the privilege of living in the Philippines, and I'm on the same time zone as China. Rob's in Thailand. He's 1 hour adrift of China from a time zone point of view. And when it comes to communicating, we find it quite easy because obviously we're up when they're up in the office. However, if you've got one of these salespeople working in the office, once they leave the office, they're not going to be able to get their emails. They're not going to be able to get onto the Alibaba platform to reply to you. 9 times out of 10, that is. However, they will have their social media communication apps, something like WeChat, and like Rob said, they just carry them around with you all the time. So if you've got a question, don't be surprised when you get an answer when you convert the time, when it's the middle of the night over here in Asia, because they will respond. If they're up, they will respond. Okay, so this is another good reason why moving out of the Alibaba system from a time zone point of view can help you if you're in America or other places. I'll say we're slightly privileged over here in Asia because we're on the same time zone. So that's we're looking at alternatives and methods on how to contact people. When to switch to email. Now, Rob said, and I've had this, and I think most people have had this. There is a time and a place to get an email communication, for sure. And that's when you're placing orders, I find. Getting into the email before that, it just wastes time and communication gets lost or confused because, one, the time scale and the time zone differences. So if you're sending something in the morning, they're not going to actually receive that until just before they're going home. They may be busy. So if you send one after lunch, forget it. It's the next day you're going to get a reply back simply because of the time zone difference. So you are playing this ping pong. You're playing a match of ping pong with emails, and it just takes such a long time to get in a response, simply because of this 12-hour, 13-hour, 16 hours difference, depending on what East Coast, West Coast you're on, with respect to when they can actually respond to you. All right, so this is it. To start with, don't go email platform. When I always switch over to email when I'm placing the order, because I can actually get the right and relevant information in a recorded, in a legal document, and then get that information over to them. That's the only time I really switch over to email. But once you're into that email system, once you start to build that relationship with your supplier, you'll know whether they are responsive. You know what you can get out of them with respect to response times and everything like this. But it's really important not to start with this email ping pong, because one, you just get really, really frustrated because these guys want my bit. All I want to do is give them money, and they're not even coming back to me. That's the point you get to. It's crazy. So just don't do it. So use the email wisely. All right, and listen to some of these points here. I'm going to go over this quite slowly because it's important. Once you do get into the email system, it's very good for conveying the following information: sending photos, listing potential problems or problems you've got with a sample or any other problem you have with your product or supplier. Okay, so you can see here we've gone past that initial communication point of view and we're moving down the road somewhat. Potential root causes. Okay, we've got the handle keep breaking off. I think your welding is not very good. Can you check it, please? Okay, and you can ask for a response. Can you please come back with this particular point? Is a very good point here. Listen to this one. Try to make only 1 point per message. Rob mentioned this earlier. Very, very important. If I've got an issue with the welding on my saucepan, one email will go out with respect to that potential issue. Nothing else. I won't talk about the color, the box, the packaging, anything else, right? Just that one particular issue, 1 point per email. Very, very important. Okay. Because if you start mixing stuff up, particularly with an email, you've got an email, they'll come back to you, then you go back to them. This is called an email thread. Okay. Now, within that thread or list of emails that go backwards and forwards, if you start to mix in, oh, thanks very much for sorting out the handle. Now I've got another issue with respect to the paint. Okay, the paint keeps flaking off. Okay, that's a different message. That's a different email thread requirement. Okay, because that's a separate point. So if you want to come back to that 6 months later, you think, oh, where's that paint issue? Can't find the email that I sent. Or no, I sent an email somewhere. Because initially you'll be able to search for that, but you won't be able to find it because it's buried way down in like 15th or 16th email response that you sent back to them. But originally it was under welding problem with the handle. Okay, so keep each point separate in each email. Very important when you do that. Don't send and resend long emails. A long email is going to get you nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. Right? If you apply too much pressure, you'll probably get an unclear response because they just like, you've got too much information in there. You're trying to push them. Come on, I need an answer to these 12 questions. What's the matter with you? Yeah, it's just not going to be good. All right, and be careful not to place the blame on any particular person. Doris, you said you were going to send me an email. Why haven't you done it? Come on, this is ridiculous. I'm going to switch suppliers. You're rubbish. That's not a very good way to do it, and I'll explain why later. The natural tendency. All right, this is I'm not, again, not pointing fingers or placing blames. This is a cultural thing, okay? And I'm not trying to say that this is right or wrong. It's just a fact. It's just the way it is. The natural tendency of Chinese suppliers will be to justify themselves and to find an excuse, which is often classed as a small white lie or bending of the truth, however you want to term it. Okay, the most important thing is to get them to formulate the next corrective action. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is, Doris, you said that you were going to send over the latest sample where I requested my logo. You said you were going to send it yesterday, and you haven't. Where is it? What's wrong? And they could well reply, yeah, well, we had problems with sort of the collection agency at sort of FedEx, and actually he'll come over later on today or first thing in the morning and to collect the product. I'm really, really sorry. At which point I'll be happy enough. But behind that statement could be the truth with respect to, we haven't finished it yet, and I just need a couple of more days to finish it. Okay, that could well be the truth. All right. So what I always tell my suppliers when I'm starting out, in other words, when I've confirmed my supplier, I mean, I know I want to work with that particular supplier. I say, right, this is the way I do business. I've been dealing with, doing business in China for the past 20, 25 years. And this is the way it goes down. I know there are problems with manufacturing. I know there are delays in production. I know there are going to be quality problems along the way at some point. Let me know so that we can work on the corrective action together in order for me to be happy and you to be happy. In other words, it's a win-win situation. I'm not here to point fingers, place the blame on anybody. I just want to be able to move forward, get my product correct and out the door. Because every time that they mess up on production, it's costing them money because they have to correct it. Okay, so if we can work on a corrective action so they don't mess up next time, it's going to cost them or save them money. So it's a win-win situation, as opposed to like, oh, we just haven't finished it yet. Well, tell me you just haven't finished it yet. That's fine. Then I can plan around that. Okay, so just have that conversation with them. But you will often see this small white lie. Sometimes you won't even know it, and you'll just come across it. Sometimes it does get uncovered later on, obviously. But and again, I'm going to go through why these white lies come up from time to time. So when you're negotiating with your supplier, and again, I'm going to keep this fairly top level here. Okay, what do you negotiate with your suppliers? Now you've got to remember, these suppliers deal with people all the time. Okay, we are not the first person to actually contact them and say, okay, I'm going to start your business off. I'm going to buy the first 100 products. No, it doesn't work that way. These are professional manufacturers and sellers. Therefore, they're quite good at detecting a newbie or someone that's inexperienced at purchasing. So therefore, when you do this for the first time, you need to make sure that you come across as someone that does know what they're doing. Okay, so the very first discussion stroke meeting that you have with them, in our case, is going to be a discussion. You should discuss the following. Obviously, once this is past the hello, Doris, what's your price for 100 silicon mats? Okay. Total lead time, including shipping dates. Okay, and this is one of the questions that sort of Rob and I asked during the week to our supplier. So what is the lead time? If I give you confirmation now, what is the lead time to produce the products and ship them to FBA? And I just gave them an address, just so happened to be Rob's address in America. Okay, because they will ask for it, where am I going to send it? Okay, and they came back with a pretty good breakdown of that. Well, once we've received the deposit, it's going to be X amount of days. And bearing in mind that the time of year, there could be delays in shipping because it's very busy because it's Christmas. Okay, so I got a definitive answer. My definitive answer was between 14 and 20 days. Okay, from the time they receive the deposit until my product is in at FBA. Okay, and this is not a new supplier. We've been dealing with the supplier. But this is the information I asked. Okay, Incoterms. I'm going to go into Incoterms in a minute. But basically, this is your FOB, EXW, and some of these other acronyms that you've seen flying around. Access to and transparency about the manufacturing site. Are they a manufacturer? Are you able to print my boxes? Are you able to change the logo? Are you able to change the color of the product? No, we are a trading company, but we can find out for you. Yes, we are the manufacturer. We do everything here on site. No, we subcontract that part of it out. This is the information that you really need to know, because all of that is going to impact and affect your lead time. Okay, can you imagine if you've got a silicon mat, right, and they just like make the silicon mat and don't do any printing whatsoever? They have to subcontract that work out. In other words, send it to another supplier to do all of the printing. Okay, so you got the answer from them. Yeah, when we make them, it's going to take 10 days to produce your mats. Excellent. What about the printing? Well, that's going to take an extra 5 days. 5 days just for printing. Well, the reason is they subcontract it out. In other words, they package everything up, send it down the road to somebody else. They unpackage, print them, package them up, send them back to the original manufacturer you're talking to. So that's the extra time. So it's important you understand your supply chain. Yeah. Quality standard and product specification. Less important on your standard garlic press, but however, it's still important that you understand exactly what you're putting out and what you're buying. If you leave it fairly open-ended, in other words, just send us what you've got, that's fine. Well, guess what? They're just going to send you what they've got, yeah, regardless of the quality. Quality is important. Very, very important, particularly when it comes to selling products on Amazon. Because once you start to get products coming back or returned because of poor quality issues, Amazon are going to notice that. And if you get too many, you'll get shut down. End of business before you start. Or even worse, you built your business up into a very good situation. And all of a sudden, you've got a bad batch come through because you haven't pinned down your quality standards with your supplier. They're sending you anything they've got. And all of a sudden, you're 10,000 a month, 100,000 a month, whatever the case may be, business gets shut down by Amazon because of all of these quality return problems. Payment terms. Again, very important to understand what your payment terms are with your supplier. Generally, it's 30% down payment. And then you pay the balance after you've had your products inspected. Okay, never give them 100%. It's always a down payment to start with, i.e. a deposit. A deposit is a very loose term when it comes to dealing with the Chinese. Very, very rarely will you get that deposit back if things go wrong. However, there are ways around it, but that's a different conversation. So these are the 5 points. I'm going to go into these in a little bit of detail now. So you're going to have a copy of these slides, so I'm going to whiz through these quite quickly, but you can digest these later. You can download and have a look at these. So from the very beginning, you need to ask them two things. Okay, this is the lead time. You need to understand this because of reordering. Okay, and you don't want to be running out of products. And that's another topic we're going to cover soon. What months are you most busy? Now, it's not necessarily always around Christmas. If you've got a fairly seasonal product in the summer, I don't know, rubber rings, for example, swimming, they're going to be extremely busy before summer. This time of year, they're not going to be busy. Okay, understand that. Once a perfect sample is approved and you give them the green light, we just talked about this, how quickly can you get products shipped? You should always ask to keep two pieces of advice in mind when discussing lead times. In general, okay, whatever they promise, you should add 3 to 4 weeks. Your internal planning, okay. It's okay to start with, when you get your first product out there, it's a little bit irrelevant because it's your first shipment out. But once you start to actually restock and reorder 3 or 4 times down the road, you don't really want to be running out of stock. So therefore, you need to plan and plan carefully when you reorder. Okay. When you're discussing timing, always remember that quality needs to be maintained. If you ask them to rush production, it's almost giving them an excuse to deliver poor quality. Okay, make sure it's very, very clear. And I just covered this. You cannot accept poor quality products. Period. Okay, Incoterms. And again, I'm not going to go top level here. The next slide goes into more detail, but again, you can have a look at this later. X works. Well, let's have a look at the FOB to start with. Right, along with the quotation, you should write something like FOB Shenzhen, for example, if my supplier is in Shenzhen, or FOB another port. This means that they pay for the parts until the port of Shenzhen. Well, actually, it's changed now. In 2010, it changed. So it's actually on the vessel or on the airplane. Okay, that is where they pay. You are responsible for the shipment of delivery of goods to the final destination. In other words, you are responsible for that travel expense. And generally, it's going to be FedEx, something like this. They'll pick up the bill and you pay them. Okay, FOB is by far the most common Incoterm. Incoterms just means these shipping terminologies. Okay, EXW, you may have seen that. I think Will, you had a question in a group during the week. What's the difference between FOB and X Works? What she asked for. Generally, I always ask for FOB. X Works means they are responsible for delivering the product up to their factory gate, no further. Okay, so therefore you are responsible for collecting that product and making sure it gets to FBA, wherever that is, or to your house, wherever you're sending it. FCA is a free carrier. Okay, you name the place and delivery methodology. And again, they are responsible for producing that product, and then you work with a freight forwarder to do everything else. And the same with these, I'm not going to go into details, but the ones that we're interested in, guys, is FOB generally, or X Works if you're working with a slightly larger product, or you're ordering container loads at a time, ask for X Works. Okay, the others out, I'll let you have a look at them. So FOB, I'm just going to go through the most popular. X Works, the buyer picks up the goods at the factory, like I said. Okay, the factory is responsible for the gate only. Okay, you have to pay all the import-export duties in China. FOB, this is the one I generally go for. The supplier is responsible for all costs to the point where that product is loaded onto the ship or loaded into the airplane. In other words, they will be paying for the import-export duties in China. That's it, and the products. And then the rest of it is down to yourself, stroke FedEx. CIF, this is insurance included. I don't normally go with that. DDU is duties, deliveries, all paid, everything done. It's just delivered straight into your place. No worries about it. Again, those are really for container loads and larger stock. So it's basically FOB is the one I would go for. X Works, you may come across that. Okay. Access to transparency. We talked about that. What does that mean? To make sure that you're dealing with the supplier who you think you're dealing with. In other words, make sure everything's produced in a factory that's approved to produce your products. Okay. Have the supplier confirm that your representatives, i.e. a third-party inspection company, can go in and check the products at any time. Okay, we talked about it in the past. Try to avoid your suppliers at peak season, particularly around Chinese New Year. Chinese New Year is generally around February, March. Right, quality standards. Very important to understand this. In Chinese suppliers' mind, quality is tightly linked to price. And that's a very, very true statement. If you're asked to lower the price, that could well imply that you're asking for less strict on quality. That is not what we're asking for. Okay, we need to make sure that we're clear with that with our suppliers. Therefore, one of the key elements when negotiating is that you can discuss price, no problems, but you also need to make sure that your quality standards are not negotiable. Just make sure that that comes across. The best way to do that, put it in a document, make sure it's clear. Payment terms. Again, a lot of people get worried about this. It's really about 30% down, 50% after shipment, 20% on delivery and warehouse. That's if you're moving up into higher scalage, container loads. But to start with, we are always talking about 30% down, then the balance after inspection, not after it's been shipped, after inspection. Okay, so let's have a look at the relationship. Guanxi, right? Let's roughly translate this into relationship in Chinese. It's the foundation of what business is all about in China, right? China is very heavy on their culture, and their values are very different from what mine and yours are, from a Western practice point of view. There are different manifests at every turn, every facet of this business, and how they deal with business is very, very different to us as a Westerner getting into this first time. Trust, respect, face is all very different. And it requires a little bit of time to actually build that relationship with your suppliers. I'm going to go into face in a minute. Guanxi is an important notion to remember when you deal with your Chinese suppliers. Remember when I first started talking here, no need to ask about the family and build up relationships to start with. That's still a true statement. However, once you do start to build that relationship, I often get emails or Skype messages, hello, Mr. Paul, or hello, Mr. Adam. How is your family? Did you have a nice weekend? And I'm thinking to myself, well, yes, thanks, but why are you asking me? Because I've got a business relationship. You got to remember, in China, the culture is very different, and building up that personal relationship is very, very important, particularly if you want to be dealing long-term business relationships with your supplier. Very important you understand. Very important you find out what the boss's name is, and you actually throw that into a few conversations every now and again. Not necessarily on the first order for your 100 silicon mats, but as you're moving down the road, there's no reason why you shouldn't actually ask how their family is. Did they have a nice weekend? Hope you have a nice holiday coming up. How's your boss these days? Hope he's well. Hope he's, blessings to his family, etc., etc. That goes a long way with respect to building up the relationship. It's a small thing. It doesn't take any time at all, but it goes a long way. China. Be polite at all time. Listen to this carefully. Some buyers are disrespectful towards their Chinese suppliers because, like I said, business is business. Yeah, and sometimes we can actually bang the desk, have harsh words with one another, and at the end of the day, we shake hands and everything's okay, no problems. Yeah, it's just heat of the moment, okay, when it comes to us. Not necessarily the case in China, okay. Again, it's a fine line. Can you imagine when you drive your car, you can be assertive when you're driving, but you should not be aggressive. Road rage is not acceptable. Placing your car in a position where you're actually going to get somewhere is okay. Getting out and slapping somebody because they beat you there is not acceptable. Okay. In situations where someone has made a mistake or done wrong, and the error is made attributable to that person in public, then that person has lost face. Now, I'm talking about your supplier here. If you blame them and there's a group meeting or there's a group Skype or whatever the case may be, and you come out with a statement, Doris, you made the statement that you were going to send them yesterday and you didn't. Okay, that's wrong, and I'm not happy. So if you make a statement like that, that's not necessarily a good thing when it comes to your supplier, because what have you done? You've actually pulled them up in front of their peers, in front of their bosses, in front of their other workers, their co-workers, and in their reputation, they have lost face because they've been pulled up and exposed, as it were, and done something wrong. Okay, this is what they call losing face. Chinese would do everything they can not to lose face. Therefore, revert back to the white lie. Okay, so if they want to tell you something that you want to hear, in other words, oh, Mr. Paul, yes, I have sent your products and they went yesterday. I'm going to be very happy. However, they're still sitting in the factory because they haven't finished yet, remember? Okay, but at this point, Doris has not lost face, because she told me several days ago that my products will be sent out yesterday. Whereas in fact, what she should have said is, actually, we've got a problem with the printing. It won't be done this week. It's going to be done next week. Is that okay? Okay. White lie will often save face. Okay, so you got to, it's very confusing once you come across it. You know, you think, hold on a minute, what's going on here? It's just part of the culture. And this is why you need to have those conversations frank up front. Look, if you've got a problem, just tell me, then we can work it through. We can plan everything out. It's not an issue. I would rather be told the truth as opposed to not telling the truth. Okay? Business is business. You need to make sure that business is business, and you should defend your interests. In other words, quality, timing, delivery. However, always keep in mind that the Chinese people do tend to mix professional and personal relationships. In other words, they need to make sure that you are a trustworthy person. In other words, can you, and this is why they ask you all of these like questions non-related to you. They're just like probing. Part of the culture. If you want to be in this business, you'll be dealing with the Chinese for a long time. Try to understand their culture. Okay, the common ground, the one common ground that we have is money. People, money. They, as Chinese people, are entrepreneurs. They've set up their business. They've produced a factory, or they've built a factory, and they're producing products. For what? Because they want to better their lives as people. They're entrepreneurs. They want to make money. Same as we are. You know, we've set up a business because we want to better our lives, spend more time with the kids, go on holidays, do whatever the case may be. But we're entrepreneurs at the end of the day. Okay, so they've got the same language, money. It all comes down to that, which is good. I just want to I just want to switch tack slightly. And I'm going to go into the supplier selection matrix. Okay, so I've got a few slides here that we're going to cover. And this is basically what it looks like. And again, you can get a copy of this. I'll send this out and make sure it's available for everyone. But basically, what we're doing is looking at a number of different suppliers and trying to make a mind up with respect to which supplier to go with at the end of the day. Now, as opposed to going on gut feel is okay, but let's take some rationale and apply it logically. And I'm using this matrix in order to do that. Let's go through this in detail, shall we? So, supplier selection matrix. When selecting supplier for your product, there are a number of different attributes that you should take into consideration to make sure they're a good match for what you want and what your product is in your business. Okay, and there's a process through this, but I'm just going to focus on the left-hand side. What I've squared around with red here is generate this comparison sheet, which I'll give you, and it's in the membership area. Collect data on each potential supplier found and analyze the data. Okay, so we're just going to be focused on this small section of this process in the moment. So let's have a look at the open data itself. Now, you need to add the specific attributes you'll be comparing each supplier against. You can see here that we have cost, quality, location, reliability, and payment options. Okay, they're the ones that I'm interested in. Okay, but you can change it wherever you want against whatever. But this is a good starting point, all right? You'll also see we need to gather all the information using communication guidelines that we talked about previously. Add scores against each supplier on how well they've done against each of the attributes you included. Okay, so supplier 1, we'll be looking at costs, quality, location, reliability, payment options, and giving them a score. Same with supplier 2 and 3, and hopefully we'll get some numbers out of the bottom. So let's have a look and see how we're ranking this. There's 2 sections to this. If I go back, you can see here, we've got the top section here. This is where we're going to be adding some of our data. And this is the rank each supplier, okay? We've also got down here in the purple section, weighting. Okay, so let's have a look at these 2 aspects. So the ranking grades, 1 is very poor. 2, poor, right up to 5 is very good over here. Okay, now the weighting grades how important is each attribute to you. Notice if they're all the same, yeah, you wouldn't have a weighting in there. But I think more important some things than other things. Okay, so let's have a look. So if you want to weight it, and again, you can decide which ones your weighting goes. So 1 is the least important. 2 is less important. 3 is like neutral importance. So this is neither here nor there. 4 is important, and 5 is the most important. So let's have a look and see what we've got in ours. Okay, so what we've done here, and again, let me just zoom in so we can have a look at this. So supplier 1. Supplier 1 has come back with their information. I've asked all of the relevant details, and I'm going to score them. So don't forget, here's my grading down here. So I've got supplier 1. The cost, well, it's quite poor actually. It was a high price, so I'll put that down as a 2. The quality seemed to be okay, so it was an average on the sample that I received. So that's a 3. Location, ideally I'd like that in Shenzhen, but it's slightly out a little bit. So there's a little bit of traveling to do. It's an extra day on shipment, all the rest of it. So that's down as a 2. That's quite poor. Reliability. When I'm talking about reliability, don't forget on the slides previously, we're talking about reliability with respect to how reliable are they as a supplier, not necessarily as a product. So this is my supplier reliability I'm grading here. Okay. Payment options. I want to pay by PayPal. They do actually accept PayPal. Credit card via PayPal, double bubble, double protected. That's what I like. There are 5. Very good. So what else we got? Let's have a look. The weighting. Okay, and this is what I've got my weighting as. The cost. I see that as important. Quality, very important. Location, it's it's not critical. Therefore, I've got that as one. Two, it's less important, okay, than some of the others. Okay, payment options. Three, that's neither here nor there. So the main ones for me are quality, cost. I could have switched reliability to 3 and 2. It doesn't really matter. But anyway, what's going to happen here is I have a look at this. All right, it's going to take my score here as a 2. It's going to multiply that by my weighting and give me a supplier rating grade. Okay, 2 times the weighting, 2 times 4 is 8. 3 as a grade on supplier 1 under quality. That's high. I've got my weighting as 5. 3 5s are 15. You can see what's going on here. Okay. So my supplier 1 score is a total of 48. Let's see how we get on with the rest of them. Okay. So I've now approached all 5 of my potential suppliers. I've now added in all of my grading, and the weighting is taken. You don't have to worry about this. It's all driven. This is calculates itself out, and so do the scores down the bottom here. And you can see that my supplier 3 is coming out as my best potential supplier. What I would do here is I would move forward with my supplier 3, but also continue the conversation with supplier 2. As you can see down here, this is second ranking of 54, 62, 54. They're the 2 that I'll be looking at. Okay, so on the chat, I just want to go through this last few sections now, is the buyer's checklist for selecting new suppliers. Before deciding on the right supplier, consider the specific supplier concerns below. Okay, this is just a general checklist. You've got this now. You know, you've got these sheets, so you can actually go through this and just make sure you're looking at. Reliability. Is the supplier, like I said, it's not the product I'm looking at, it's the supplier that I'm looking at when I'm talking about reliability. Is the supplier reputable with a proven track record? I don't want to start dealing with someone that's like been in business for 2 months. Okay, they need to have some track record, need to be proven. Have the supplier's ability and integrity been proven by past performances? In other words, have you dealt with these guys before? Do you know anybody that's dealt with them? Have a look at their track record. Is the supplier giving me savings along with production improvements? Yeah. In fact, we talked about it earlier. Rob and I had approached a particular supplier, one of our current suppliers, and said, give us the latest prices for the next 500, 1,000 items. And they come back to me and said, well, actually, Mr. Paul, prices have gone down. Okay. Why? Because the exchange rate is in our favor at the moment, and therefore we're able to pass that on to our supplier, our buyers. So we actually got that. A lot of people won't. They'll just keep that in their back pocket for themselves as suppliers. Is the supplier's management team experienced and stable? Again, I find this quite important when we're dealing with a larger products and moving forward and building your business. What is the supplier's position in the industry? Are they industry leader? Have they just entered the scene? In other words, are they the number 1 in fidget spinners? For example, if they're number 1 in electronics, yeah, that could cost you an arm and a leg because you're dealing with Foxconn or something like that, the people that build the iPads and the iPhones. You need to understand that. Sometimes you need to understand that. It's important. What is the supplier's previous delivery history with the company? In other words, are they always on time? Are they always late? Don't forget, I talked about WeChat, and I deal all of my deliveries and orders on WeChat. Very, very good history with respect to that particular supplier. I know that when I send something in, I'm going to get something the next day. They will send me the information I need to build my shipping plan, and it gets done very, very quickly. Financial and cost factors you need to be looking at as well. What is the total cost of using a supplier's product or service, considering quality, delivery, and transportation? All of these are all part of your communication. These are questions you should be asking. Okay. How is the product priced? Make sure it's transparent. Make sure you understand each of that. If it's built up of a number of different components, make sure you understand where each of the pricing is built into each of those components. How would transaction costs be affected by dealing with a supplier? A lot of people forget that. If you need to wire money, that's not a free service. You need to talk to your bank with respect to how much does it cost to wire some products over. Make sure you calculate that into your pricing. Where's the supplier's financial position and credit rating? Are they just about to go bankrupt? Who knows? You need to find out. We talked about it in a previous thing. Do your background checks. Does the pricing meet your internal targets? We got a pricing back during the week. They were going to send over 100 products, FedEx, and it was going to cost me $1,500. It was previously it cost me $300. Well, clearly that did not meet internal targets, which I made it very clear about. How will inventory carrying costs be affected by using the supplier's product? Yeah, is this oversized product? Is an undersized product? What's going to happen with your cost of inventory at FBA? You need to work all of this out. Is the supplier willing to negotiate? Always negotiate, guys. Come on. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get anywhere, but you always start off negotiating. Right, last couple of things I want to touch on. Technical capability. We talked about potentially being able to change or modify your product, even if that comes down to producing your own specific packaging or placing a logo on your product or changing the color of the item. Okay. They need to have some sort of engineering internally in order to do that. Will the supplier provide analytical engineering? In other words, if something goes wrong, are they able to actually sit down logically and sort out what went wrong and potentially improve efficiency within the business itself? Can the supplier handle special needs and designs? Talked about that a minute ago. Does the supplier contribute a general technical advancement through basic research? In other words, do they have their own R&D? Are they bringing out new products internally? Are they able to, Paul, we've got a new product coming out. You might be interested. Why don't you have a look at this? Yeah. Or are they a follower or just a general run-of-the-mill, can't think outside the box and just produce what they're producing? I'd much rather have a supplier say, Paul, I've got a new product. Have a look at this. That could be my next $1 million product. Who knows? Does the supplier have special technical capabilities? That sort of goes hand in hand with the previous one with respect to R&D, research and development, or the operating technical characteristics of the manufacturing. In other words, silicon baking mats, yeah, and printing, or is it just silicon baking mats and nothing else? Yeah, you need to understand these are some of the questions you should be asking as you're moving forward and starting to build that relationship and understand the capability of your supplier. Okay. Delivery and availability. Again, very important when we're moving forward. Restocking. Will the supplier ensure on-time delivery? Yes, Mr. Paul. Products were sent yesterday, don't forget. In fact, they're stuck in the factory because we can't do the logo you want. Are stocks available locally on short notice? This is one of the questions that Rob and I asked during the week. How quickly can you get it? Do you have stock or do you need to make it? The answer was, we need to make it. Does the supplier offer support services? If you've got a fairly technical product, you may need some support from that particular supplier. Can they help? Can you produce instructions in proper English? I will do the checking, but I need your help on producing the instruction label. For example, is the supplier's location an advantage to me? Is it in the middle of the China or is it in Shenzhen, Shanghai, one of these advantageous places next to a port and that's focused on producing what they focus? In other words, I don't want my electronics product built in the middle of China, in the middle of nowhere, where there's no other support or infrastructure around it. Or my electronics product built in Shenzhen, thank you, where everything's local. Can the supplier be depended upon to provide a steady flow of products and materials? You've got your winning product. Okay, you're now selling 10 a day, 20 a day, 30 a day. You need to restock, restock, restock. Can they keep up? Can they provide that steady flow of products that you need in order to keep your business growing? Buyer convenience. Does the supplier offer a full line of related products? Mr. Paul, I see you're producing and selling silicon mats. We also have silicon cupcakes. We also have silicon spatulas and other things. Can I actually expand my business by using one supplier? Does the supplier package their products conveniently, or do they have to ship it out? Or if you want specific packaging and they don't do it, what's going to happen? You need to understand these aspects. Does the supplier have a convenient sales contact? In other words, good English. Reliable. Do they come back to you on Skype, WeChat, email, the Alibaba chat platform? Are they qualified to help? It's always good to actually talk to somebody that understands what you're talking about. Particularly if you do have any issues or questions. Some of those issues and questions may be a little bit technical. And if you're talking to an 18-year-old straight out of university who can just talk English, they're not going to be able to answer your question. And it's just going to add delays. I'm not saying this is a major issue, but it's just going to add delays because they're not going to be able to find out the answer until they go and talk to somebody else. And just understand the issue. Just understand where you are with that. Will the supplier help me cut acquisition costs? In other words, the cost of the product. During their manufacturing, basically, this is what they're saying here. Are they in a position to actually improve their operations as they move forward and therefore pass on any savings like we were offered during the week to us as buyers? And will a supplier respond promptly in answering queries? This is what this whole thing's all been all about, really. Communicating with your Chinese supplier can be very frustrating at best and an absolute nightmare at worst. But if you do work on it, keep these tips in mind. Work with them slowly, one question at a time. You will get the answers you're looking for. Quality factors, don't forget, quality is not negotiable. You need to make sure that it is very, very clear. Sales assistant. You need to basically be making sure that your supplier's representative understands what you're talking about. Right? Does the supplier help develop mutual markets? Okay, this is getting a little bit advanced. I'm going to skip this for a moment. Okay. Customer service is all about customer service. If you've got something moving forward, if you want to communicate with them on the next product, on the next order, if you've got any claimbacks, any warranties that you think, hold on a minute, this is not really down to me, this is down to our college, this is down to them. What's their supplier customer service like? Okay. Start to build that up. Again, this is just a checklist. You've got this now. You can go through this in detail on your own. Okay, so that is basically, in a nutshell, 10 minutes over, all about the communicating with your Chinese supplier. We had a look at the decision matrix with respect to adding in those scores and getting those rankings done. But one thing is clear as a leaving state from myself is keep it simple. Just keep it simple. Simple as that. Okay. Communicate one question at a time. Wait for that answer to come back before you ask the next question. And just keep it simple. All right. But don't forget, there's quite a lot of questions to ask as you're moving forward. So that's all I've got, Rob. Have you got anything to finalize on that?
No, I'm good. I think just communicating is an important thing, and I'm glad that we were able to share this with you today. Um, Keep it simple. That's the only thing I could tell you as an addition. Keep everything simple when you're communicating. Write in sentences like you're talking to a 6-year-old, because the more adjectives and descriptions you try to put in there, it is only going to confuse things. Keep it very simple and short, small sentences that are very direct, no ambiguous or any nuances of language, or never try to be comedic. Don't try to make jokes, because it will not translate 98% of the time. So that's what I have to add.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I forgot about the jokes bit. They don't work. So yeah, thanks very much, guys. Look, if you want to come down and talk to us offline, we're just about to finish this. I'll drop the link in above and chat. We're going to be around for a few minutes. Just come down and join us so we can talk to you. Otherwise, we'll see you this time next week. Thanks, bye-bye.